Growing up, the only thing constant in my life was change. After my dad left when I was 8, Mom didn't waste any time finding someone else. That someone was Bill, my stepdad. He was all right, kind of quiet, liked his newspaper in the morning and a beer after work. No fuss. But with Bill came Laura, his daughter and my new stepsister. From day one, Laura was a thorn in my side. Your real dad didn't want you, huh? Laura would taunt the moment our parents were out of earshot. Shut up, Laura. I'd snap back, feeling the sting in my chest. At least I don't have to make up stories to get attention. Mom and Bill thought we'd settle into being sisters or some sort of friends. Fat chance. We were like oil and water. She was all about causing a scene, and I just wanted some peace. I remember Bill's 45th birthday clearly. Mom had ordered this huge cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting, just how Bill liked it. It had these little sugar decorations on top, all delicate and pretty. I had been eyeing them all day, but I knew better than to mess with the cake before the party. When it was finally time to sing Happy Birthday, there it was. Half the decorations were missing. Everyone's eyes landed on me, the usual suspect. But it wasn't me this time. Sarah, did you eat these? Mom asked, disappointment knitting her brows together. No, Mom. I swear I didn't. I protested, but my voice was too weak, too unsure. Laura was quick to jump in, her voice dripping with fake concern. Maybe she forgot she ate them, she said. I glared at her. Why don't you tell them where those cake decorations went, Laura? Don't be a liar, Sarah. Just admit it, and maybe Mom will go easy on you, she shot back, smirking. I ended up grounded, of course. Laura just watched it all go down with that smug grin plastered on her face. After everyone had left, she cornered me in my room. Feel bad about the cake? I can make it better, she whispered, dangling a $5 bill in front of me. Just need a tiny favor. What kind of favor? I asked, skeptical but desperate to get back at her somehow. Just grab an envelope from Dad's office. It's on his desk. You can't miss it, she instructed like it was nothing. The promise of quick cash and a chance to turn the tables on Laura had me hooked. I sneaked into Bill's office, found the envelope right where she said, and handed it to her. Only then did she tell me there was money inside. I was already holding the $5 she gave me when Mom walked in. What are you doing with that money, Sarah? Her voice was colder than I'd ever heard before. Before I could even think of a lie, Laura started wailing. She took it from your office, Dad. I saw her. I stared at her, betrayal knotting my stomach. Laura, tell them. She just shook her head, tears in her eyes but all fake. Please, Sarah, don't drag me into this. I ended up with no pocket money for 6 months. And Laura? She got off scot-free, spending her weekends at the mall flaunting new things she bought while I stayed home. High school was supposed to be the best years of your life, or so they said. For me, it was just a countdown to when I could finally be on my own, free from the constant bickering and backstabbing that came with having Laura as a stepsister. While I buckled down on my studies, Laura found new ways to be the center of trouble. Her knack for stirring the pot was almost impressive, if it wasn't so exhausting to live with. One evening, just as I was trying to get my math homework done, Laura barged into my room, her eyes wild with some mischief or another. Sarah, guess what? You'll never believe who got caught smoking behind the gym today, she said, practically bouncing with glee. I don't care, Laura. Can you just leave me alone? I muttered, not even looking up from my books. Oh, come on, don't be such a bore. It was Jake Miller, you know, the captain of the football team. But here's the juicy part. I sold him the cigarettes, she whispered conspiratorially. I slammed my textbook closed. Are you insane, Laura? Why are you messing with stuff like that? You're going to get expelled if you're caught. Lara shrugged, unfazed. Relax, I'm not stupid enough to get caught. Besides, it's easy money. I shook my head, disgusted, not just by her actions, but by the casual way she dismissed the risks. You're on your own, Laura. I want no part of this. As our paths diverged, our interactions became even more strained. Mom and Bill noticed, of course. They tried family dinners, forced outings, anything to bridge the growing gap between us. It never worked. Lara always had an excuse, a snide comment, or a sudden plan with her shady friends. Our arguments were frequent, each one chipping away at whatever weak bond we might have had. When Lara turned 16, she started hanging out with a crowd that did more than just smoke behind the gym. Alcohol, late-night parties, and who knows what else. I heard the rumors, saw the state she'd come home in. One night, I found her stumbling through the front door, reeking of booze. I grabbed her arm, trying to steady her. Lara, this has to stop. You're going to ruin your life, I said, my voice low, worried despite everything. Lara yanked her arm away, her eyes narrowing. Why do you care? Just leave me alone, Sarah. I'm having fun, something you know nothing about. The next that was the last real conversation we had before she dropped out of school. Few years were a blur. I graduated, focused on my future, while Lara drifted further away. She moved to another city the moment she turned 18, cutting off almost all contact with us. Mom would sometimes hear from her, big updates that told us nothing about how she was really doing. Bill would sigh at the dinner table, a sad, defeated sound. I don't know where we went wrong with her. Mom would be quiet, her face drawn. We tried our best, Bill. Sometimes it's just out of our hands. As for me, I was just relieved to have some peace, to not constantly worry about what trouble Lara would drag into our lives next. I focused on my studies, went to university, and never looked back. Graduating from university was like taking a deep breath after holding it for years. I had a diploma, a clean slate, and a world of possibilities. The excitement was palpable, but so was the fear. Where do I go from here? That question loomed large until the answer came unexpectedly in the form of an inheritance from my biological father. I remember getting the call from the lawyer. I was in my small apartment, surrounded by job application forms and half-packed boxes. Sarah, your father left you a significant amount of money, the lawyer explained over the phone. You need to come down to the office to discuss the details. Okay, thanks. I'll be there first thing tomorrow, I replied, still in shock. $100,000. Suddenly, the future seemed a lot brighter. With the money, I decided not to just look for a job, but to create jobs. That's how my cleaning company started. It was a shot in the dark, but I was ready to take it. Finding an office wasn't hard, but setting up was a headache. You need a license here, an inspection there, the city clerk told me, shuffling papers across the counter. Yeah, I get it. Thanks for the help, I muttered, checking another box off my endless list. The early days were rough. I hired a few staff members, but managing them was like herding cats. Mike, please just put the supplies back where you found them, I pleaded after tripping over a misplaced bucket for the umpteenth time. Yeah, got it, boss, Mike grunted, barely looking up from his phone. The breakthrough came when I decided to hire a customer service manager. The interviews were a blur until Chris walked in, qualified, and with a charisma that felt like a breath of fresh air. So, why do you want to work here, Chris? I asked, trying not to sound too hopeful. I like what you're building here, Sarah. It's not just about cleaning. It's about making things better, brighter. I want in on that, he said, his eyes bright with sincerity. I hired him on the spot. Chris turned out to be more than just a good hire. He was a godsend. He streamlined our operations, managed the staff with a firm but fair hand, and brought in new clients. As the business grew, so did my relationship with Chris. What started as teamwork soon turned into late nights at the office, laughing over takeout, and slowly morphing into something more. At the annual company holiday party, after the speeches and toasts, Chris pulled me aside. The music was loud, the lights dim, but his voice was clear. "Sarah, I've got to tell you something. I think I'm falling for you," he confessed, his face hopeful yet nervous. I felt my heart skip a beat. "Chris, I feel the same way," I stuttered, surprised at my own admission. We started dating, keeping it discreet at first, but it wasn't long before the whole office knew. They cheered us on. It felt like we were all a family. A few months later, we got married. With Chris on board, things began to look up, and soon we were bidding for bigger contracts, including a lucrative one for cleaning city schools. "Chris, if we land this, it's going to change everything for us. We need to nail that presentation," I told him one evening as we went over our proposal. "Yeah, I know. We've got this, Sarah. Your dedication is about to pay off," Chris replied, giving me a reassuring pat on the back. As the business reached new heights, something unexpected happened. My mom called me out of the blue. "Sarah, honey, I have some news. Your stepsister Laura is back in town. She's turned a new leaf, or so she says, and she wants to reconnect," Mom explained, her voice a mix of hope and caution. I paused, memories of past hurts flashing through my mind. "Really, Mom? After all these years?" I replied, unsure how to feel about it. "Yes, she's changed." When Friday came, Chris and I drove to my parents' house. I was nervous, unsure what to expect from Lara after all these years. As we walked in, there she was looking different, more mature maybe, but it was hard to tell if it was genuine. "Sarah, look at you. All successful and happy. I'm so proud of you," Laura exclaimed, hugging me a little too tightly. "Thanks, Laura. It's been a long time. How have you been?" I managed to say, keeping my guard up despite her warm greeting. "I've had my share of ups and downs, but I'm back now, and I really want to make things right with everyone," she said, glancing around at the familiar faces. During dinner, Laura was overly interested in my business. "So, tell me, how much do you make from your cleaning company? It must be doing really well," she asked, a bit too eagerly. I exchanged a look with Chris, then turned back to Laura with a cautious smile. "It's going all right. We manage," I said, deliberately vague. Mom and Bill seemed thrilled that Laura was taking an interest, completely oblivious to the tension. "It's so wonderful to see you girls talking." "It's been too long," Mom said, beaming. After dinner, as we were leaving, Chris squeezed my hand. "Are you okay? You seemed a bit off back there," he asked. "Yeah, just old memories coming back, I guess. Let's just keep an eye on things, okay?" I told him, feeling uneasy about Laura's sudden return and her interest in my business. Just a week after that awkward family dinner, I had finally sealed the deal on the school cleaning contract, a real game changer for my business. I suggested to Chris that we catch a concert of our favorite band and then hit a bar to celebrate the success. He was all for it, his usual enthusiastic self making everything seem right again. The concert wrapped up around 11, and with the final notes still ringing in our ears, we headed toward a nearby bar. "I'll meet you there. Just need to use the restroom quick," I told Chris, pointing to the little building off to the side of the concert venue. When I came out, the night had swallowed up the crowd, and Chris was nowhere in sight. I scanned the dimly lit path, my heart sinking a bit with each passing second. That's when I spotted him, his familiar silhouette unmistakable, but he wasn't alone. He was talking to some girl, her figure backlit by the street lamps. As I moved closer, a cold realization set in. It wasn't just some girl. It was Laura. My steps faltered as I saw them kiss, a sharp, betraying sting cutting through me. Instinctively, I ducked behind a nearby tree, my entire body tense as I fumbled to get my phone out and hit record. I needed to know what was happening. Their voices were low, but I caught every word, each one a hammer blow to my trust. We're almost there. Just need to move the money now that she's landed the contract. Can you believe how easy it was? Chris's voice, once so warm, now dripped with deceit. Lara's laugh was a sound I knew all too well, cruel and taunting, just like when we were kids. She never saw it coming, and soon will be in Mexico, living it up with her money. The details spilled out. They had been planning this for years. Lara had pushed Chris into my life, all to set me up for this moment. They planned to drain my accounts, leaving me with nothing but debts. I stood there, shaking, as memories of childhood betrayals meshed with the pain of this ultimate deception. Lara had always been a thorn in my side, but this was something else. They sealed their vile pact with a kiss, one that turned my stomach. I felt numb, unable to move, unable to think, but I knew I needed to act to protect myself and everything I had worked so hard for. As they walked away, still laughing, I finally allowed myself to breathe. I stepped back from my hiding spot, my mind made up. I had the recording. I had the evidence. Now I needed a plan. Chris found me by the exit, his face all smiles, clueless that I knew everything. "Hey, there you are. Got a bit lost, huh?" He joked, his casualness like a slap in the face. Holding back a torrent of emotions, I nodded, my voice steady but cold. "Yeah, just lost track of time." I couldn't sleep that night, replaying the images of them together, plotting against me. The next morning, feeling a mix of fury and resolve, I reached out to Tom, a classmate from school who was now a police officer. We met at a quiet diner, a place where we could talk freely without the risk of being overheard. "Tom, I caught them planning to steal from me." "It's all on this recording," I said as soon as we sat down, sliding my phone across the table. Tom listened intently to the recording, his expression darkening with each word he heard. "Sarah, this is serious. We need to catch them red-handed. That'll make the charges stick," he said after the recording ended. "Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I want to nail them properly. They can't get away with this," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor of raw emotions. "We'll set up surveillance on your accounts and keep an eye on their communications, but you'll need to act normal, like you suspect nothing. It's crucial they don't smell a trap," Tom advised with a serious look. I nodded, understanding the weight of the role I had to play. "I can handle it. Let's do this." For the next few days, I slipped into the role of the clueless wife. Chris was his usual self, all smiles and affection, completely unaware that I was on to him. It made my skin crawl to play along, but I had to make it believable. We talked about trivial things, plans for the weekend, what to have for dinner, random stuff about work. I kept my responses light and neutral, burying my anger beneath a practiced smile. Simultaneously, I continued to visit my parents with Chris, where Lara was often present. She would smile sweetly at me, engaging in cheerful small talk as if we were the best of sisters, but I caught her glances, cold and calculating, when she thought I wasn't looking. At work, Chris started talking more about the future, particularly about the influx of money from the school cleaning contract we had just secured. Once the money comes in, we can really expand, take the company to the next level, he'd say enthusiastically. I knew it was all lies. He was just waiting for the right moment to snatch that money, yet I continued to nod and smile, agreeing with his plans, all the while knowing they were built on deceit. Absolutely, it's going to be a great boost for us, I'd reply, keeping my tone light and excited, hiding the ice in my veins. The day of reckoning finally arrived, draped in an ordinary guise. It was a chilly Tuesday, the kind that hinted at the coming of winter, but inside my nerves burned hot with anticipation. The trap was set, and today it would snap shut. Lara had arranged what she called a farewell dinner at our parents' house, under the pretense of celebrating her sudden engagement to a wonderful, rich guy who, as it turned out, was none other than Chris. I arrived alone. Chris had texted he'd be late due to a last-minute work crisis, which I knew was code for trying to make the final transfer of the stolen funds. As I walked into my parents' house, the familiar smells and sights did little to ease the storm inside me. Lara was glowing, the picture of joy as she greeted me. "Sarah, I'm so glad you could make it. Tonight is going to be so special," she beamed. I forced a smile, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, my voice laced with a bitterness only I could detect. As the evening wore on, Lara was effusive, spinning tales of her future plans with her fiancé. My parents soaked up every word, their faces alight with happiness and relief. They had always wanted to believe in Lara, despite everything. And thinking of moving to Mexico, can you imagine? Beaches, sun, and just endless days of happiness. Lara gushed, her eyes darting around the room. I sat there, a silent observer, waiting for the right moment. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. It was a message from Tom. Asterisk, it's going down now. Get ready, asterisk. Just then, the door burst open, and Chris stormed in, his face flushed with anger and panic. "Sarah, I need to talk to you. Now," he blurted out, glancing nervously around. I stood up, steadying myself. "What's the matter, Chris?" "Everything okay with work?" I asked, feigning concern. "It's not. I can't. The accounts. They're frozen. I can't access any of the money," he stammered, his eyes wild with fear. That was my cue. "Oh, is that so? That's strange, because I haven't had any trouble with my accounts. What were you trying to do, Chris?" Before he could answer, the front door opened again, and Tom walked in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. The room went silent, the air thick with tension. "Christopher Lane, you're under arrest for attempted fraud and conspiracy to commit theft," Tom announced, his voice resolute. Chris spun around, his expression one of betrayal. "Sarah, you knew. How could you?" "I knew everything, Chris, from the very beginning," I said, my voice calm but cold. Lara's face crumpled as she realized her plan had crumbled. "This is all your fault, Sarah. You've ruined everything," she screamed, lunging toward me, only to be held back by an officer. As the officer handcuffed Chris and Lara, I turned to my parents, their faces pale and shocked. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but it was the only way to stop them." Mom was sobbing, her dreams for Lara shattered in one evening. Dad put his arm around her, his eyes on me, filled with a complicated mix of understanding and pain. The days following the confrontation were a blur of emotions and necessary formalities. Legal proceedings against Chris and Lara were underway, and while it was a relief to see justice in motion, the personal fallout was harder to manage. The first time I visited my parents after that night, the air was thick with unspoken words. Mom was in the kitchen when I arrived, and the clatter of her cooking didn't mask the tension. "Hi, Mom," I said softly as I walked in. She turned, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes red. "Oh, Sarah, I'm glad you're here." Her voice cracked a little. We sat at the kitchen table, nursing cups of tea that neither of us seemed inclined to drink. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I can't believe Lara could do this to us, to you," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. "Mom, it's not your fault." "We were all deceived," I reassured her, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. Dad joined us, his usual easy smile gone. "Your mom and I. We've been thinking a lot about the past, how we might have turned a blind eye too often." "It's all right, Dad. We all wanted to believe the best in Lara, but we know the truth now," I replied, trying to ease their guilt. As the legal battles wrapped up, both Chris and Lara were convicted of fraud. The court's decision brought a definitive close to that painful chapter of my life. I filed for divorce, and it was granted without complication. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work, the familiar routine a comfort. The company thrived despite everything, a testament to the solid foundation I had built. Chris's betrayal hadn't damaged the business. If anything, it brought my team closer together. They rallied around me, their support unwavering. One afternoon, Tom stopped by my office. "Just wanted to see how you're holding up," he said, leaning against the doorframe with a casual grin. "I'm managing, thanks to you," I replied, offering a genuine smile. "Really, Tom, I can't thank you enough for everything." "Hey, just doing my job." "But I'm glad I could help a friend," he said, his tone sincere. Looking back at everything that had happened, I realized that while the betrayal was part of my story, it didn't define me. I had faced deception and come out stronger, wiser, and more determined. The ordeal had shown me my own strength and the value of true loyalty among those who really mattered.